Hello and welcome to STA Extra. We have a special guest with us today, Venard Fong, who is a sports therapist based over in the Northwest. Venard, welcome.
Morning.
So we are going to be talking today about your kind of different approach to sports therapy, your kind of different route into sports therapy and how you practice. Do you want to kind of start by telling us a little bit about your background, what your previous career was, and how you kind of progressed into what we're doing now?
Yeah, so I'm Venard and I run Pain Free Ninja, and I'm based on the Wirral in the Northwest, where the whole mission of the whole approach and ethos of my work is to solve chronic muscle and joint pain as fast as humanly possible. A lot of my work is, as you can see from the screen now, is based around eyes and vision in the rehab of chronic pain.
Okay. So how did you kind of start with that? Because I know that you had a previous career within this kind of within that area. So how did you kind of get into that? What was your previous career? Give us a bit of background onto that.
So my previous career is that I'm an orthoptist. So lazy eyes, double vision, squints, all that kind of stuff was the type of work that I'll be doing, including the Monday morning trip over to the Max Fats clinic to do a vision assessment on someone who's had a fall from the weekend or had an unfortunate fight, a barbell or something like that, and they ended up in hospital. So that'll be the kind of range of work that I have to do before the Max Fats surgeons would do any reconstructive work.
Okay, so it's a bit of a career change then. Kind of go from that to, well, I suppose I'm saying it is because I work differently.
I kind of got into the world of eyes because it was the best option when I had my kind of university kind of course meeting when in A-levels. It was either eyes, maths, chemistry, or physics, like all like very well respectable subjects. And I thought, man, these are all hard, but eyes had a better prospects of coming out with almost like a guaranteed job. At that time, like the bursaries or like the funding was pretty much taken care of. So financially, it was a much better move. And I figured it's a no-brainer.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what kind of brought you into this direction then, into kind of sports therapy, rehab kind of side? So how did that transition happen?
Came out through my sport. So most of the time it would be ego and pride. So I started training martial arts because a lot of my friends in secondary school, they were training as well. And at that point I was thinking, I wasn't really that fussed. But then after about a year of my mates training, they started coming into school with their massive trophies and their medals. And I was like thinking, damn, I want a British title, I want an English title. Like I was thinking like it was more the podium that appealed to me. So I started training and kind of got good at it. My mates, they stopped training because they got bored or had other interests. And I got to a level where I was at a point where there's no backing out anymore. Like I'm deep enough that I have to continue the journey. So I got myself to a high level. So I was competing internationally, Europeans and World Cups and World Championships. And at that level, you get to a point where it's more of the training matters, but also the maintenance. And I realized that the less injuries I can get, or the best I can maintain my body, so like minimizing the effects of the injuries, the more I can train, the more I can compete, the more I can win. And when you're at that higher level, you end up seeing the same kind of names or faces because everyone's always, it almost like separates the cream and everyone else. So it's going to be, me and 3-4 other guys in that particular sector. So when it got to that point, it's more like bragging, because when you're in your late teens or your early 20s, that's what it's all about, where you're competing. And I realized that, yes, I'm able to do more. And there's some of my fellow rivals or competitors, they were clocking on that I was competing a lot more. And also I was winning a lot more. And we all sometimes have like a kind of an unwritten kind of tally of who's beaten who in our minds. One of them was like, now what the hell are you doing that's allowing you to train and compete more? But not just that, but also doing at a pretty decent level. So I was like, oh yeah, try, I don't know, these stretches, which would be stuff that I would find on blogs, articles, YouTube. So I did my own research and they were getting pretty good results from it as well. And I thought, well, if he's getting better, that means I've got to level up again. So for me, it's more of I wanted to get to the best state of winning rather than winning because everyone else wasn't at the right standard. I wanted to kind of get everyone up to better quality in competing. I was thinking, oh, yeah, there's something in all of this. So that's when I retrained or added the qualification as a sports therapist. And here I am.
So where did you train as sports therapist? What route did you take?
In Manchester.
Okay. Was it degree, level 5?
Level 5 diploma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So obviously that kind of took you into that kind of direction. So how quickly did you kind of set up practice? And in your head, when you first started, what was did you want to amalgamate the two kind of career choices? So like the eye system and the injury side, or did it kind of just come about? Was it organic? Was it planned, or was it kind of completely by accident?
It was down to my sheer impatience. So at first I was thinking, oh yeah, cool. I did eyes and I still do eyes now. But when I retrain, I thought, okay, cool, I'll set up a practice and I'll be pretty much working with injuries. Because of all the years I was training and I was competing, a lot of my work is geared for results. That's all I'm about. It's the results is what matters. So it's like when you work with people that are in pain, they don't really care what you do, how you do it. They just want to be out of pain because it stops from doing a lot of stuff in their life. And for me, I was doing a lot of the manual therapy. I was thinking, yeah, this was all good. But then I was thinking, there's obviously something that's much more important that can get me the results faster. Because I'm sure you've been in the same space, Scott, is where you're doing amazing work, but it's not getting the results that you're looking for, or your client's looking for, or it keeps unraveling. You're thinking, what else is missing? And then I just started looking a bit more into what actually is the order of importance with the body. So how I see things is with muscles and joints, they're actually quite low in priority in the body because, well, muscles are lower than joints because muscles pretty much work by what the brain tells them to do,
yep.
Whether consciously or subconsciously. So if your muscle is tight, is it tight because, I don't know, say I've got an itch on my nose. So my whole arm chain would have to flex, contract, tighten up to scratch my nose. Or is it tight because it's protecting something and it's in a guarding state? So I thought there's something deeper into this. So that's where I started looking more into the brain-based work or the nervous system work. And I think, oh yeah, this is pretty good because I can almost influence the outcome of the muscles by working with the nervous system. Then I thought, but what does the brain do? I was like, but the brain can only send out the right signals based on what it gets in. And I was like, well, what are the different types of sensory inputs? And eyes is going to be one of the biggest ones that we have, especially when around about a third of your brain is devoted to the visual system. It's a whole degree in itself just to study eyes. That tells you the importance. So similar to like dentistry, it's a 5-year doctorate, doctor dentistry, just to study the teeth and the head. So that tells you the amount of depth and importance that is in that particular area. And I also looked at a bit more into movement. So my movement knowledge wasn't good, but it was fairly decent from the training that I used to do. But I wanted to learn a little bit more about the different types of movement. So like how the body moves, developmental movements, gait and gait patterns. And that allowed me to kind of piece together of what the body does as a whole unit, what each individual muscle does, and also the input system. And then I just amalgamated all of them together. And here we am.
Yeah, I find that quite interesting, really, because like obviously within rehab, within strength and conditioning, exercise, there's been a lot of research, I suppose, into different types of cue and internal cue and external cue, and like when you're trying to get somebody to maximally power, whether you kind of go lift as hard as you can, or you use an external cue or pushing the ground away, which has an impact on performance. But yeah, I suppose I've never really thought about it like what you've just said there, like whatever your muscle does. So as soon as you mentioned it, I wanted to scratch my face. So, and you don't think about it, do you? You go to scratch and you just do it, and it's, you see something over here, something comes, you just do it. And that's it. That's an input from your eyes. And I suppose everything we do, unless, you're doing blindfolded balance training or something like that, it all has an impact from it. So how do you kind of incorporate the two then? So let's say, so what's the kind of general client for you, if you do have a general client, or give us a kind of an example of somebody who would come and see you?
So someone that would normally see me would have been someone who has tried other approaches or seen other clinics or other clinicians, and they haven't gotten the results that the clinician and also the client have been looking for, because they also know that they weren't born with the problem, they weren't born with the pain. So there's actually there's a cause. It's just a matter of finding it. And so they would find out about me usually through recommendation or social media. So what would happen is my intake is pretty intense and also very comprehensive, because from when I was working in the eye world, is a new patient, if it's just solely for eyes, a new patient, I would get a 45-minute slot for a new case. But also means that I don't actually have to clock watch either, because if I overrun by another 45 minutes, it's cool. So there's no clock watching. And in that, if we stay with that 45 minutes, 30 minutes of it would be, well, about 25 would be my actual history. So about half of the time would be just me doing the talk, well, me talking and me listening, getting information. And then the next 10 minutes, so at 35 minutes, that 10 minutes will be me doing the actual assessments. And the assessments pretty much just confirms the theories that are in my head already. Because if I ask the correct questions, the answers would be there. The answers are always there. You just have to frame it in the right way that the client can tell them. And then once you treated it, well, assessed it, then you just treatment. The treatment is actually the short part of the session. And then you just test it out. Then you test out to see, is it actually the correct treatment for that particular person? So things like if it's a back pain, a classic, they're quite common. So they'll come in and their first session with me can be 2 hours to 3 hours long, depends on the complexity of the case. So if we go with a 2-hour session, then about the first hour or first hour and hour and 15, that will just be me doing history and the assessments. The assessments will be a positional assessment, a postural assessment, and a muscle function, because I want to see, is that tightness? Is it because it's overworking or it's underworking? And they're two different flavors, and it determines which route you're going to go with finding out what the actual cause is. Once I know what their body's doing, I link in with the different causes that I found from the history. And then I show them, okay, this muscle of your lower back or your hips, they're actually weak. But if you stimulate this particular system or move your eyes into this particular position, the strength is there. Okay. And then they know that there is actually a link, that there is an outcome. So rather than going for like a leap of faith, I'm also a big fan of showing my clients a projected outcome. So if you're going to do a treatment, the client should know what to expect, what level of outcome, whether it's an increased range of movement or an increase in the strength or mobility. Back in the eye world, it was something that I would do with every single one of patients in the eye world. If I was with a young child, and a 5-6-year-old young child, and they actually had really poor vision, and their parents, obviously, they're going to be really worried about it. So I'll do all the assessments and I'll show them, this is what level of vision that they're getting now. If we give them this level of glasses, this strength of glasses, or this exercise, this is the level of vision that they'll get. And they'll note in that same session. And the parents will go, okay, we're going to be complying with the treatment because we know that they're getting this at the start of vision. This is what they're getting as a projected outcome. And the projected outcome usually meets the normal level for lifestyle. So for driving, the DVLA, they're really hot on a minimum level of driving. If your vision doesn't meet it, then unfortunately you won't be allowed on the road. Or academics, for sports, for careers. So there is a knock-on effect with having poor vision. And it allows the parents to kind of go, yes, because they can see it. If you're going to have eye surgery for a squint, there will be assessments where I'll be doing measurements to say, this is what would happen if the surgery was done. And it's whether you can regain 3D vision or not. And that will determine whether the consultant goes ahead with it. And it just means you're not, again, it's not that leap of faith of, yes, we'll put you in for surgery, you have eye surgery, and oh, darn it, you've got double vision, which you never had before, which is the worst case to happen. Or you've had the surgery and no difference at all. So you've been cut open and had all the stress and the anxiety for it and not had any benefits. That's something that I transferred into my actual practice now, is being able to show my clients of, this is what your body's doing now. If we treat these areas, this is the cause and this is what we're going to do.
Okay, so I want to go back to that back pain one, because I've kind of come across a couple of little examples of this quite recently, actually. But I want to kind of get your take on what you do with that. So you say you've got somebody, I don't know, potentially weak muscle in the hip, but you get them to do something different with their eyes, and it changes the action of that muscle. So what specific, can you give us an example a bit more in depth about how you kind of, what you would do with the eyes to kind of alter that?
So the history would form a lot of it. So there'll be more stuff, but eyes are usually one of the first places that I would kind of either try to rule out, or if we can't rule it out, it'd be one of the top players in all of this, is that I would get them to think back to how they had the injury. So the event of what actually happened and where the eyes were, like where they were looking, can affect the whole compensation pattern.
Okay.
So it might be moving the eyes into a different position, or I might be getting them to, if I give them a pinhole occluder, which is what I use for eye assessments, which increases the level of vision. So I know it's a glasses issue. If their hip actually strengthens and it's a glasses issue, go see the opticians, go get that done. But I'll change input with the eyes, and whilst I'm putting that stimulus in with the eyes, recheck the hip muscles in this case and see, does it make a difference? If it does, that's what I'm going to do, because the input affects the output.
Yeah.
So you can hammer. I can be hammering the hip. I can do stretches, do releases, fascia work. I can be going to town on it all. But if the information that's going into the brain isn't improved, the brain is only going to send a lower quality signal, because that's all it knows.
Yeah, no, it's because that's just something that kind of, we had a quick chat beforehand, and it's like, I've got a bit of an interest, but not any kind of depth of knowledge. And I've had a client come to see me with like long-standing neck pain. He's been to see many, many different therapists. And it was one of them where you had to unravel a lot. It was a lot, because it's been going on for 15 years. It turns out he had a bike accident, low velocity kind of bike accident, in the rain years ago. And he probably had concussion at that point, and he's got neck pain all down that side. But that was 15 years ago, nobody's kind of addressed that. And I was kind of doing some neck movements, and I noticed immediately, as soon as he was going left to right, his eyes were all over the place. I was like, right, let's do a fixed gaze one. Lateral flexion, going towards the left, couldn't do it. Literally just went like this. And I was like, right, focus on, right, I had him sat on here, like, pick a letter on that book, focus on that. All of a sudden, his head goes in all these positions because he's got a fixed gaze, and it's kind of took that out. And I was like, wow, and I videoed him to kind of go, look, you can do it. And once that kind of rings true with that person, the results are just ridiculous. And that's just from one little bit. It's kind of leading me down a garden path, which is quite glad we arranged this chat, because it kind of ties in quite nicely. So when it kind of gets to your treatment protocols then, so I'm guessing you see a fair few head injuries, neck injuries,
Yeah,
that kind of thing as well. So if somebody's got persistent neck pain, they've had neck pain for a few years, they've been seeing people, what's kind of like your, what kind of parameters do you use? What kind of treatment protocols do you use? That kind of thing. That differs from normal kind of, let's strengthen this up, let's get some range of motion, let's get some passive mobilizations into this. What would be there? Really... What would be? Sorry, let me kind of make that. What would we kind of go, right, this is what I want you to do at home. This is your rehab. This is how we're going to help you. What kind of stuff would you give for that?
My whole aim is to make life as easy and as simple as possible for my clients. Because no matter how you frame it and how you spin it and how much you sugarcoat it, rehab work is going to be boring. No one really wants to do it. And as soon as the pain is gone, or they get that brief window of, oh, there's no pain, you know that they're going to stop doing it, because that's the whole point of it. And for me and I've been there before, I don't want my clients to be bogged down with like sheets upon sheets of generic exercises, or I don't know, a list of videos that aren't specifically tailored for them, or exercises where they kind of think, damn, I've got to change into my workout gear and I've got to do 50 burpees to warm up, limber up, and then it all takes like 20 minutes, and I've got to do that twice a day, which is going to be 40 minutes to an hour, which it's a lot out of someone's day. So I want to make sure it's as simple as possible, and ideally where if it's less than 30 seconds in total for the day, great. So if it's someone with neck pain, it'll be obviously assessing what's going on with the neck, assessing what the muscles are doing. Is it tight because the neck is overworking, or is it tight because the neck is actually underworking, protecting something? From experience, if someone comes in with neck issues and there has been no direct injuries to the neck recently, then it's likely it's going to be compensating for, like say, a concussion or head trauma. So I'll be looking more towards the head, the eye system, treat that, and then show you the neck muscles of this is what's actually working. So I would test the neck muscles again, because the body doesn't know what's been done, or doesn't know what the alternative of it would be. And so things like if you test the neck extensors, like going that way, keeping the head backwards, and they're actually really weak, and the neck flexors, the deep neck flexors, they're actually really weak, you know that there's going to be a major issue going on, because they're like the big muscles of the neck. But if I say to them, move your eyes in a different position, and I check the neck muscles and they work much better, I know that particular position is the one that I'm going to be treating. The neck muscles are actually just a compensation to support the head. So once I treated the eyes or whatever it is that I needed to do, I'll check the neck muscles again, and I don't know, the extension and the flexion, and they'll be almost normal, like normal, strong, confident. What I'll do then is I'll put them up into different positions. So if they go to gym, or if they walk or they run, I'll put them into different positions to test it out. If they play any particular sports, get them in those kind of positions, because every position changes the loading of the body. And how I see things is that it's great that you're able to get them back to day, but if they want more in their day, you've got to be able to deliver it. Otherwise, it's like me going to you guys like, hey, Scott, I've got this really, really good steak. And you'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like, yeah. But if I give you the steak, you're like, okay, you start to enjoy it. Or if people are vegetarian or vegan, it'll be the equivalent. So it's no point saying like all the stuff about it. You have to be able to demonstrate it. And so in the neck case, once the neck has experienced that the treatment and it actually works, everything else that's below in hierarchy all fizzles out.
That goes back to what you said at the beginning though, doesn't it? So if you don't establish what their aims are, if you just presume they want to have less neck pain and then just get on with it, they may want to play rugby again. They may want to kind of be running again. They may want to do all this stuff. If you don't decipher that from the initial injury or the initial history, then you're never going to get anywhere with it. You're just going to kind of go, right, done, right, we can do these. Your strength's fine. See you later. But then they'll go for a run, they'll go play football, they'll go do whatever, and they'll still be experiencing that pain. So it's the same with any kind of rehab, I suppose. It's just coming at it from a different kind of point of view.
Yeah, so all about making life.
See what I did there.
So about making life for the client easy as possible. Also for me, because the more time I spend in the history, because you may have got like in some of the comments, I always say like check the history. The more I know, the easier it is for me to kind of go, okay, this is what's going on, this is where you want to be, game on. It's that bit is the easy bit. It's the actual history, which is why I'm always a big fan of spending more time, because the actual assessment, the actual physical assessment, all you do is you just prove the theories that are formulated in your brain. The treatment literally just solidifies it, because once you know where you need to go, just treat it. It should be fairly straightforward if you've asked the right questions and done the right assessments.
Okay, so we kind of spoke about how, like, your philosophy on the treatment and the rehab kind of side of it. So CPD wise, where do you go with this? Because I'm kind of going, where would I find? Well, I don't know where to go with that. So what kind of CPD do you do? What direction do you take with it? What training, extra little bits do you pick up?
A lot of it is more just going deeper into the eye system. So like the different movements of the eyes, the different aspects of the eyes. So for instance, like say 3D vision. 3D vision, people kind of think, oh yeah, cool. 3D vision, fairly simple. And we kind of take it for granted. But it actually goes into a lot more depth. So for 3D vision, there are 4 different levels that you have to achieve before you get to 3D vision. So the first one is simultaneous perception. So that's where each eye can see. That's all it is. Okay? And your brain can recognize images from each eye. Super, super simple. Okay. Obviously, because 3D vision, you need 2 eyes. So if you can't have both eyes being able to see, it's pointless. The next stage will be the images from the 2 eyes being able to put together. Your brain has to have the ability to put the 2 images together. If it can't do that, you can't have 3D vision. But if your brain can do that, so you've got your 2 images, your brain can put them together. Okay, now we're going to add movement to it. Because of the way the eyes work, they work as a pair, but there's also a little bit of a lag in some cases with the movements. So if your visual system isn't geared up for it, there's a chance that people can get headaches, migraines, blurred vision, maybe double vision, because the eyes can't track enough for it. So you have to put in the motor control in with it. And now that your eyes and your brain can move your eyes, still maintain that single image, how much depth can you see? This is the kind of the icing on the cake, because you can have fairly gross depth perception. Most cases, it's ideal for day to day. But then if you want to go into the finer levels of the depth perception, the actual functionality of it would be much greater. So for instance, if you're playing sport, you need to be able to kind of see ball is coming from over there, you need to judge that distance. Or if you're going to be a surgeon, I want to make sure my surgeon has pretty good eyesight if they're going to be operating on me. So there's a lot more kind of functionality with it. So looking deeper into the different aspects of the visual system. Lately been looking a little bit more into the neurological side, because that still influences a lot of my work at the moment.
So is there any kind of good, sorry, interrupt you there, carry on.
And yeah, a little bit more into kind of movement-based type of work.
So is there any kind of good resources or kind of people to follow anywhere? Where would you kind of point people to if they've got a bit of an interest in this?
This is one hell of a meaty book, which is one of my favorite reads, but it's also fairly, oh no, not fairly, but like it's really in depth. It just gives you everything from A to Z for eyes.
Cool.
So it's also tricky because you don't really get any kind of courses because of the whole specialist nature of it.
Yeah.
And also what I'm looking for. The words have left my brain. Is the depth of the work. So I know like that there's other courses, other modalities where you can go in and do a 1-day course or 2-day weekend course, and you can get the same type of course, but then someone has done a 5-year master's or doctorate in it, or someone has done 20 years worth of studying, qualification, training, seeing the cases, using the skills day in, day out. And it comes down to, if you had to use it, can you use it? And hopefully it doesn't happen, but if something did happen, would what you've done, would it hold up in your justification?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things. So yeah.
That's been interesting. It's been interesting because it's kind of given me a little bit of food for thought, and kind of like I said before, I'm quite interested in this kind of different avenue of, because we can get people deadlifting, we can get people lifting weights in increased range, but sometimes it's those marginal little gains, especially in higher level sport. It's these little bits that probably we don't get taught them on degrees or kind of courses. It's not really a thing. So it's been an interesting chat. So there's one last bit that you told me to ask you at the end, and it's raw garlic and cheesecake. So
raw garlic and cheesecake. So imagine all you've ever eaten was raw garlic. Some people love it. I'm a big fan of garlic in cooking, but if that's all you've ever eaten, you don't know any other difference. Yep. If someone has offered you, so you got raw garlic here, someone offered you cheesecake, and you've had a cheesecake. So Scott, which one would you choose?
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. But
I've had a weakness for cheesecake since I was a kid. However, I do love garlic as well.
When it comes down to it, it's like cheesecake or raw garlic, and you go cheesecake because it's it's different, it's new, and you like it. So we go cheesecake, okay? Cheesecake here. Cheesecake's going to be your new default, okay? And now we're going to go cheesecake, and let's see, lasagna.
I'd stick with cheesecake.
Cheesecake. So how I see my work is, and this is in the assessment process and even through to the actual treatment, is having to present a better alternative for the body. If you can present a much better alternative, but one, it makes things easier for you and also for the client because you don't actually need to do much work, like actual homework or exercises. It's like raw garlic and cheesecake. Once you've had cheesecake, raw garlic, you won't want to touch raw garlic ever again. Cheesecake is your default. But then if I throw in lasagna, cheesecake still wins. So lasagna, you won't go into that one. If I went a nice grilled sea bass.
No, I'm sticking with cheesecake. You
Still
picked the wrong
cheesecake.
person. Yeah, I told you. I'm not a massive seafood fan.
Yeah, so you just keep having to present alternatives.
Okay,
And if
right,
cheesecake
I
is
see
the
where
best
you're going with this.
alternative, no matter what I give you as a second option, you're like, nah. And that's how I see with the work, especially with the vision work, the eye work, and the neurological work, is if you can influence the input and present the body with a much better scenario, the body will take it on, and you won't have to be doing a lot of exercises. So one particular case, if we've got a bit of time, is this was about 5 years ago. I was working with her. She had 27 years of pain, neck, shoulder, hip, lower back, knee, all on one half of the body, which is very, very specific kind of configuration. And like a lot of the clients I've seen me before, they've seen like lots of different approaches. They've had lots of different treatment types, like taping, like rock tape, all that kind of stuff. They've had cupping, acupuncture, they've had like a whole load. They're even considering having surgery. When she came to me, we mapped it all out. So this was done in one session, mapped all out that all of her pain came down to 2 eye muscles. So we treated that, and everything along that half side of the body, they all fizzled out. Like literally the weakness all melted away. Strength was there, movement was there. Before I treated the eyes, I compared the eyes with a head injury, so like a cranial issue and a jaw issue, because 27 years or 20 odd years ago, all her issues started because she got hit by a car. So this is how far back, this is why, again, like the history is always key. You go as far back as you need to and work out what actually was the event, even if it's like, I don't know, when they were 50 years ago, but I don't know, so like a little kid or a few months old, it all actually matters. And because I tested out the cranial, the head injury, the cranial stuff with the eyes were actually better. And when I treated it, everything else fizzled out, because I went with going to the top of the top of the food chain in a way, and all the issues fizzled out. Because of that, she didn't actually have any exercises to do, no homework, no strengthening stuff. Her body just knew what it needed to do. And 5 years down the line, like even last week when I checked in with her, still fine. So when you get to the top, as high up as you can go, and you can present a different alternative, which is a better version, it makes life much, much more easier.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was the kind of treatment for that then? What if it came down to 2 eye muscles, what kind of modalities do you do? What is the treatment for that?
I did an eye muscle release and an activation.
And how because as soon as you say kind of an eye muscle release, within our industry,
we're not talking about like sticking someone's finger into someone's eyeball.
I know it's not that, but that's kind of, as soon as people hear muscle release, their brain goes to, I'm going to stick my thumbs in, I'm going to stick my elbow in.
So I use something from the eye world where it's getting them to look into certain positions and presenting a new visual stimulus, which inhibits the muscles in that position. So it's hands-off work in most cases. But it was a very precise order because of the eyes. There's 2 eyes, 6 muscles in each eye, and came down to 2 muscles. So you have to kind of go through all the different types of configuration. But it was one muscle that's overactive, which you needed to calm down or release, and another eye muscle which was underactive, which you needed to kind of activate or stimulate to readjust the balance. The whole link of it was she got hit by a car on her left-hand side. Her eyes saw the car. So that whole fight, flight and freeze.
Yeah.
I know subconsciously your brain goes, oh God, this isn't going to end well. And it almost imprints that image into your neurological system. So her eyes were in that position and she had impact, and her brain almost saved that particular state her body was in as the new default. So when I was assessing her, normally everything on that, I think it's the left side of the body, everything was actually weak. If I got her to look to the left-hand side, all those weak muscles strengthen up. So it's literally just the action of moving the eyes, which is why eye work is quite high up on my list, and concussions and head traumas, they're also quite high up on my list because there's loads of people that have had these type of injuries, and the effects of it is quite long lasting.
It's really interesting. I mean, we could chat for absolutely ages on this, but you know, we've been going for quite a while. So if anybody wants to ask you any questions or anything, where's the best place to kind of contact you? What's
best place to contact me? Be in the group.
Okay, so on the members group, if because this will be going out to a few others as well. So what's kind of, so Pain Free Ninja, I'm guessing they can kind of contact you through your Facebook page.
Pain Free Ninja, either DM me on my Facebook page, Instagram, Pain Free Ninja, and on the STA members page.
Good stuff. Bernard, I want to say thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will speak again. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome, man. Thank you.